Coming up on Chasing the Natty, it's the best week of the season. It is championship week in college fantasy leagues, as well as rivalry weekend. We have an incredible guest on tonight, Mr. Austin Nace from the Campus to Canton boys over there, and we got a lot to talk about, so let's go ahead and get right onto it right after this.
Look downfield and Circus, one-handed catch is made. Jones goes to the end zone. Oh, what a catch! Devontae Smith, touchdown, Alabama.
Watch out for Mr. Robinson. This kid is going to be special and is already flashing.
This is Chasing the Natty, a college football fantasy podcast.
All right, welcome in everybody. This is Jared Palmgren, host of the Chasing the Natty podcast. I hope you guys are having a wonderful, wonderful week. It is an incredible weekend for everybody all around the country. We got Thanksgiving this weekend. A lot of people getting ready to go see their families. A lot of people getting ready to eat plenty, if not too much food. Hopefully it's good food. Hopefully your families are good cooks all around. But we all know that if you're listening to this podcast, you have a second love that is this weekend, and that is college football. Tons and tons of stuff to talk about for this weekend. Like I said in the intro, it is rivalry weekend. We want to highlight a ton of those games for you guys tonight, talk about what the implications of those games can be outside of just the stuff of, rivalries, hating each other and everything. But before we get into all of that, we have a wonderful, wonderful guest on tonight for you guys, Mr. Austin Nace from the Campus to Canton service. Austin, how you doing tonight, man?
I am great. Happy to be here and ready to talk. I mean, Thanksgiving football, it's like peanut butter and jelly, or, me and Colin. I mean, it's just, famous duos. So yeah, I'm very happy to be here.
Absolutely. Again, tons and tons of stuff this weekend. So before we get into the games and everything, Austin, you are from Campus to Canton, of course, and it is a league format that I would say has grown a ton this year. I think a lot of people who normally enjoy like a Devy format or even, really just enjoy Devy, but also enjoy playing people who enjoy playing college fantasy football and NFL football, they're enjoying the format a ton. So I just want to ask you, what are you guys seeing with Campus to Canton? Are you what kind of stuff are you guys working on, and what kind of stuff maybe could we expect to see in the upcoming year?
Yeah, so the format is definitely growing. We've just more members over the site every month. I've had so many people ask me to do startups already for next year, and I can't keep committing to more and more of them, but. Yeah, it's a great format. It combines like every piece of fantasy football that we love. Mm-hmm. I love college football. I love NFL football. I'm a big Pitt fan. I'm a Steelers fan. It kind of combines all those things. In terms of things that we have coming up, I don't want to give too much away. We actually have a call this evening to talk about some of our off-season planning. Definitely looking forward to maybe a facelift for the website. Right. Maybe an additional tool or two coming out this year, and possibly some more info on the 2022 freshman class. I know that's kind of all the rage right now. So that's kind of what you can expect from us in the coming months, and we're looking forward to it.
I mean, absolutely, and I'm starting to get more and more DMs from people who are in Dynasty or Keeper leagues asking me who should be kept on our rosters and everything. And guys, promise, that information will be coming. But right now, we got championship weekend for a lot of you guys. A lot of you guys have worked really hard to get to this point. You're the final two teams in all of these leagues. I'm playing in 3 different championships this weekend. I'm playing in my home league. I'm playing Xavier actually. Playing him this week in our home league. I am playing in Mitch Hart's home league. I knocked him out last week, and so I'm playing for the championship in his home league. And then I run a Power 5 league on the side, and I just happen to be doing well in that one. Don't like my chances because I think my 2 quarterbacks this week will be Anthony Brown and God, who was the other one? Was it Peyton Thorne? That's who I'm stuck with right now. It's a little rough. I don't know how I made it this far. Actually, I know how I made it this far. I had Jordan Addison and Jamison Williams last week.
That'll do it. Huge weeks there. And then obviously, I'm sorry for your loss last week.
The Kings Classic, yeah.
Yes.
If y'all haven't listened to my, not tirade, but if y'all didn't listen to my rant about that in our yesterday's episode, please go ahead and do that. I guess one more thing before we move on to the games, Austin. Again, I asked John Lobb on yesterday's podcast. If you haven't listened to that, by the way, go listen to that. It's around the 10-minute mark. I asked John some of the things he saw shifting in the college landscape in 2021 and what he might think continues into 2022. So I just want to get your opinion on that as well. Like what are things you notice, maybe even from a C2C perspective, that you notice changed in 2021 might be moving forward?
The transfer portal obviously is the big thing. I think we really don't even understand the ramifications of that 100% yet. I mean, we've had 1 year of it, and we've seen some huge success stories. Jamison Williams, a guy you just mentioned that, you don't have to take a year. You just go wherever you want to go there and step right in. We saw maybe some not so successful ones. Mookie Cooper was one I was really excited for that comes to mind immediately that hasn't done much at Mizzou. So I think that moving forward is going to be a big thing. And then just, the emergence of freshmen. Gone are the days where everybody redshirts. If you're good enough to play, I don't have a problem taking freshmen early in drafts, because if I think you're good enough and I think the depth chart there looks solid, those guys are going to play. We saw it all year this year. So I think those are just kind of two big things that I've been paying attention to this year and, the past year or two. And I think will continue on. I
bet those things go hand in hand, because I imagine with the threat of the transfer portal, for a lot of these coaches, they almost feel a little bit pressured to play these highly touted recruits relatively early on, because we're both fans and we know the fan mindset. And for a lot of not that coaches are pressured by fans, but they are pressured by boosters and such. And boosters a lot of times are just fans with money. And a lot of times they'll kind of pressure these coaches into playing these young, hot recruits that they just got, even if there's other older, hot recruits that they might have had. And I guarantee you that might be pushing some of these guys to the forefront earlier on than we normally would see. Otherwise, there's a threat of them leaving. So,
look what happened with Tom Herman last year. I don't know how much of the percentage you can blame on him not playing Bijan Robinson, but I'm sure that was at least 10% of it.
Oh yeah.
It's jobs are on the line. I think we're going to see more and more of it here over the coming years.
Yeah, it definitely won't surprise me. I will say it's very funny watching a lot of the same people it felt like last year who were complaining about Bijan Robinson not playing enough, now clowning Sarkisian for playing him too much because he got hurt. And I'm like, y'all pick one side, please. I don't know.
But there's a happy medium, Jared.
There is a happy medium, and it's 40-45 carries for Bijan Robinson every single game. That's what I want as a fantasy owner.
I have a lot of Bijan, so I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, that was the one place I had Bijan was my dynasty league, and that was a rough league for me. Just a ton of just bad luck in terms of fantasy points scored against me. Anyway, we've been talking about this kind of stuff long enough. Let's go ahead and move on to some of these games. Again, rivalry week. This is the stuff that makes college football, in my opinion. Anybody who's listened to me for a long time knows I prefer college football over the NFL 8 out of 10 days a week. That didn't make any sense, but you guys get the point. I prefer it. I prefer it so much more than NFL, and really it comes down to the passion that comes with these kind of games, even if they are quote unquote meaningless in the playoff picture, even if they're quote unquote meaningless in even getting to bowls and stuff like that. You still have people showing up for these games, showing out, because they know that this is what matters at the end of the day. So got a ton of games to get to. Let's go ahead and hit this first one up. We got a top 10 matchup here in the Big Ten, and that is currently number 4 Ohio State at number 6 Michigan. I'm using last week's playoff rankings because the new ones have not come out. So if some of these rankings sound a little weird, that's why, everybody. So Oregon's still going to be number 3. Don't think I'm dumb. I know they're not going to be number 3 this week. Anyway, Ohio State's an 8-point favorite in this game. This is the noon Fox kickoff. Austin, I'll let you start off with this one. What are your thoughts on this game? What are you kind of looking for?
I'm interested in a couple of things. I'm interested to see what Ohio State does with his Michigan pass rush. They've really been getting after it. I'm wondering if that means, more, is Travion Henderson involved a lot in the screen game or, quick little outs? I mean, I think that favors probably JSN a lot more maybe. So those are kind of things I'm looking for in Ohio State. How do they deal with that Michigan pass rush? Which is really just named Aiden Hutchinson, but
yes,
we'll call it the Michigan pass rush. And then for Michigan, I mean, I haven't heard anything on Blake Corum's status for this week. I know he was handing out turkeys in Ypsilanti today. So I don't know if that means he's healthy or not, but if not, then I'm interested to see what Haskins can do.
I believe
Haskins startable.
I believe he was warming up last week. They didn't play him in the game, but I think he was it was one of those things where there was a real question there for a second there if he would play in last week's game against Maryland. I think they realized they didn't need him against Maryland, so they're going to save him for this game, if anything.
So that makes sense. And so then, maybe you don't want to play some Haskins, but I think that's probably what I'm looking for on that side of things, is I don't really care too much about their passing game.
Yeah. Definitely what I'm looking for in this game is kind of what everybody else is looking for in this game. Like Ohio State put on a clinic last week in terms of their passing game against Michigan State's defense. And I'm one of those people where I'm very impressed with Ohio State's passing game. Don't get me wrong. They have three of probably the best receivers in the game. Easily probably top 3 out of the top 10 easily. And that's being harsh on it. But to me, it still has to be said that Michigan State had the worst passing defense in the country. The country. Not the Big Ten, not the Power 5, the entirety of the FBS. They have the worst passing defense. Ohio State was made to take advantage of that. I am much more interested to see what Ohio State can do against this Michigan secondary, which is expected to be a lot better than Michigan State's. Now, if they do, again, what they did to Michigan State, oh boy, that's some dangerous stuff and really some championship-worthy offense right there, easily. So that's kind of what I'm looking for in this game. The line on this game is only 8 points. Started at 7, so it's moved up to 8 since then. What do you think is causing that, Austin?
I don't know. I would have actually guessed that it might be closer to 10 when it first came out, just based on what happened last week. I guess I go through two schools of thought with Ohio State. There are games like last week where obviously, yes, they took advantage of a juicy matchup for them, but they just looked untouchable. And then you think about games like Nebraska. I mean, Nebraska isn't it's not a bad defense by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not great either. And they really struggled at times to move the ball in that game. The whole offense kind of looked disjointed. They're kind of the team, when they get on a roll, they roll you. But if they don't get on that train, it's kind of difficult. So I think the line right now is fair. I haven't placed any bets yet for this week, but I would probably I'd probably take the Ohio State to cover that pretty easily. I think it's like a 10 to 14 point game for the whole game.
Yeah, fair enough. And with that, I'm going to say you take Ohio State to win the game as well. And as much as I will probably be rooting for Michigan to beat Ohio State this weekend, mostly because as a Georgia fan, Ohio State's probably the one team in the country that truly scares me right now in terms of getting in the way of Georgia's championship run this year. I'm not a homer at all, people. But yeah, I'm gonna say Ohio State wins this game pretty comfortably, even with as good as Michigan's played this year. Michigan's doing a lot better this year than I even thought they were gonna have. And it was weird because they did it through the run game, which I thought wasn't really possible for them. So with that out of the way, let's move on to our next game here. This is a top 15 matchup for this week. We got number 13 Oklahoma at number 9 Oklahoma State. Again, I should really stop saying the rankings because that's just going to confuse people. We got Oklahoma at Oklahoma State. Bedlam. Oklahoma State, a 3.5 point favor here. 7:30 game on ABC. And Oklahoma coming off their loss to Baylor. Very tough game for them. Tough physical game against Iowa State last week where once again they just couldn't pull ahead away from their competition. And they're going into Oklahoma State, who I believe is playing the best defensive ball in the Big 12 right now. Shut out Texas Tech last week, which is no small feat. Texas Tech's got a good offense. And they were able to shut them down pretty well. So really the question becomes, we all know how much Oklahoma State struggles in this game historically. It's a meme at this point, the record these two have together. So they finally have a chance to win here. They're favored. I don't know when the last time they were favored in a matchup like this. But Austin, what do you think happens in this game, or what are you looking for?
I want to see Caleb Williams bounce back. I mean, obviously they won last week and he had that long touchdown run. He looked decent. But their last big challenge was Baylor. And he obviously struggled in that game, got his hand stepped on, left. A whole array of things happened. I really want to see him come out and kind of control this game for Oklahoma. That's the big thing. Because I think, Oklahoma State's defense, I mean, they were great this past weekend. Texas Tech, I thought, was riding high. New coaching staff, new quarterback. I love Donovan Smith. They might have ended Donovan Smith's career at Texas Tech. I mean, maybe. So Baron Morton came in. So I'm just interested to see how Caleb Williams does against that unit.
I mean, you're hoping for a bounce back for Caleb Williams. I'm going to the other side of here. I want to bounce back for Jalen Warren last week. Not at all bitter that he cost me one of my playoff games. But I'm really he got injured last week. I'm hoping he comes back healthy and kind of has a rebound game, because I think that he's going to be huge for Oklahoma State to chew clock in this game. I think it's going to be huge for Oklahoma State to keep this game a low-scoring game. They get into a shootout with Oklahoma in this game, it's not going to be pretty for them, I don't think. Spencer Sanders, we all wanted him to improve year after year, but he's just one of these quarterbacks that we got him as he was freshman year, and he just hasn't really grown since then. And they don't really have the weapons on the outside that we're typically used to seeing as like difference makers. Like we used to see Tylen Wallace, guys like that. But right now they got Tay Martin, they got Brandon Presley, two good receivers, but no, like these aren't guys that I'm ready to change the game. So I guess the question now boils down to, is Oklahoma State successful this weekend? Are they able to knock Oklahoma out of playoff contention, out of the Big 12 championship? I believe if Oklahoma State wins this game, it becomes Oklahoma State versus Baylor for the Big 12 rather than Oklahoma versus somebody else. So Austin, what's your call here?
I am going to take Oklahoma State.
Okay.
I think that Baylor gave the blueprints. And while it's really weird to say this, that I think Jerry Bohannon is a slightly better quarterback than Spencer Sanders, I think they will do the Abram Smith equivalent, Jalen Warren, just grind the clock, maintain possession, and keep Oklahoma off the field. And I think they can limit the big plays enough, which is how Oklahoma's really been scoring this year. I mean, I think they struggle to sustain drives. If they don't hit you
very
quick.
much so.
So I think Oklahoma State can do all of those same things. I think they win this weekend. I
mean, I agree with you 100%. The Oklahoma offense this year has just been so boom or bust. And I think that's why they can't pull away from people in games, because they can't control the ball. They can't play keep away. They can't sustain drives long enough through their run game, through their passing game, or short passing game, really, in order to keep drives going to put the ball into the end zone or through the uprights. So I think you're right 100%. I think Baylor really did show how to limit this Oklahoma team. I'm going to be with you. I'm going to take Oklahoma State to win this game for the first time, and I thought I wrote it down. I forget when the last time Oklahoma State won this game, but it's been a while. It has been a while. So hopefully the Cowboys are able to do it here. And man, it's going to be weird if they do it to not have Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship.
No Oklahoma, no Texas. I mean, yeah. I wonder when the last time that's happened, that neither of those two teams are in there. I'd wager it's been at least 25 years.
That honestly, I might look that up here in a second. But regardless, we'll move on to the next one here. We got Florida State at Florida. Florida, a 2-point favorite. This is a noon game on ESPN. I don't think anybody was super shocked at the idea that in this game, Florida State would be playing for bowl eligibility. I think a lot of people are shocked at the idea that Florida is playing for bowl eligibility in this game as well. And obviously, Florida does not have Dan Mullen anymore. He is not coaching in this game. There's no Ogeron deal where he coaches the rest of the season or anything like that. He's gone. They're without a coach. Florida State coming in red hot right now, coming off some big wins against Miami, coming off a win against Boston College. They only need one more game to get themselves to bowl eligibility after missing it last year, I think the year before as well. And so they're riding it hot. I believe they're riding hot on some recruits right now. So I think they need this win badly to keep up that momentum. So what do you think, Austin?
This is an interesting game. I don't really know. Like this feels like a pick'em to me almost. I know. Like you said, Florida's favored by 2 points, or at least they were when the lines opened today. It's two teams that feel like they're going in opposite directions right now. Florida, obviously, in a tailspin there. Florida State, like you said, won 4 of their last 6 or whatever. There's not a lot that I'm necessarily interested in this game from a fantasy perspective, though. I don't know. I don't feel great about Travis J or J Travis, whatever the heck his name is. Does Emory start this week with no more Mullen? Do they go to Richardson? We've heard nothing on that from what I can tell.
There was a bit of a hiccup earlier this week where Richardson took off the Florida stuff off of his Instagram, I believe. And while it's been put up back up ever since, I do think it is kind of interesting to note that did happen.
Yeah. So, I mean, if Florida can't run the ball effectively, I really don't. I feel like this is going to be such a low-scoring game, but the line's at almost 60 points, so maybe I'm just an idiot. I don't know.
I mean, both of these defenses definitely struggled at times throughout this year, and Florida's defense, it felt like, just kind of gave up in several games in a row here near the end. Now, they played a little bit better against Mizzou last week. They held Tyler Beatty for like almost their entire game, which was a shocker to me. But even still, I'm going to go with Florida State here. I'm not just saying that because I'm a Georgia fan and I don't like Florida, but I really think Florida State just has more reasons to win this game. Florida needs to have a reset after firing Dan Mullen. They need to really focus on trying to get that next guy in here. So I'm going to take the Seminoles to win this one.
I'll agree with you. I think that would probably be my prediction as well.
Also, I did look it up. So the year was 1998. The last time a Big 12 championship did not include Texas or Oklahoma. What were the two teams in the Big 12 championship?
I would guess Nebraska.
Wrong.
Wow. Okay, then I don't know, because Nebraska was the one that I thought was right.
Nebraska played in a lot of Big 12 championships, but it was number 2 Kansas State versus number 10 Texas A&M.
Jeez. So it's 23 years since that has last happened. That's
23 years. That is, well, to be fair, there wasn't a Big 12 championship between 2011 and 2016.
Oh, good point. They just took the top team.
Yeah. So there was not one. But anyway, we'll move on from the Florida State game here. We'll move on. And we're going over to the West Coast for civil conflict, I think they're calling it now. But let's be real, y'all. It's the Civil War. It's Oregon State, the Beavers, versus the Oregon Ducks. Oregon, a 7-point favorite here. The 3:30 game on ESPN. A lot of people, I think, because Oregon's been so highly ranked recently, because they're not because they've only got 2 losses on the year, I think a lot of people don't realize that Oregon has not wrapped up the Pac-12 North yet. And that Oregon State, their main rival, is sitting right there ready to take advantage of that if they do beat Oregon in this game, and also if Washington State beats Washington in the Apple Cup. That they need that, because otherwise then Washington becomes the Pac-12 North leader. But even still, it's been a while, I think, since there's been a game or a version of this game that has had this many high stakes to it. And that's incredible because, again, Oregon State's usually an afterthought for a lot of people. So what are your thoughts on this game, Austin?
Yeah, two teams that I really don't enjoy watching at all this year, which is not something I thought I would say about Oregon, in my lifetime. But they're just a boring offense. I mean, it's Travis Dye, it's Anthony Brown. Brown struggles to throw the ball. So, I mean, you've got, Devin Williams catches a couple. It's not fun to watch. And then Oregon State, obviously, is basically the Chance Nolan and BJ Baylor show. I think this is a lower scoring game. I think the line is right around 63, or at least it was when it came out. And I think I would take the under there. And I think that Oregon still pulls it out. They've been disappointing on the back half of the season here, and obviously getting blown the heck out last week. But I I'm not ready to put Oregon State in that, kind of. Maybe it's just that Oregon State's never good enough. But like, I just don't think they're quite ready.
But if I remember correctly, Oregon State beat Oregon last year, if I remember correctly, and hold on, I think they beat them the year before as well. Look, I'm looking this up. Hold on, rivalry. Come on, there we go. No, they did not beat them the year before, but Oregon State did beat Oregon last week. So this is definitely a game that I think Oregon State's a better team this year than they were last year. So I think this is absolutely a game that they can come in here and show out for. But I'm kind of with you. I think Oregon, for some reason, it's like they're the kind of team where they get fired up a little bit too late. It's like they get fired up after they're knocked out of playoff contention, but as soon as you threaten the Pac-12 North, as soon as you threaten the Pac-12 championship, oh boy, you're the best version of Oregon's coming out for that. So I'm going to take Oregon to win this game, especially it being at home. I think they're going to do. I think they'll win here. I wouldn't be surprised if it's less than 7 points, though.
No, that wouldn't surprise me either. I think it'll be pretty close.
So yeah, that should be a fun one. Again, I have a soft spot for the Beavers. I don't know why, but I do. We'll hit up another rivalry game here in the SEC. It's the Egg Bowl, which is the most unimpressive name you could ever give for a matchup between Lane Kiffin and Mike Leach. And believe it or not, Mississippi State, the 1-point favorite in this game. This game is on Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, as always, 7:30 on ESPN. So yeah, again, the line being in favor of Mississippi State. What are your thoughts here, Austin? Like, what are you looking for in this game?
I want to see. Like, I'm oddly intrigued by Will Rogers.
Okay.
And I know, like, fool me once, fool me twice, fool me like 12 times on Mike Leach quarterbacks, but I'm mildly intrigued by him. I mean, he's looked pretty sharp the past couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really the whole back half of the season. Is spreading the ball around there pretty well. I mean, it was Makai Polk for a while, then it was Jaden Wally, and then Ra Thomas. I mean, they've got some interesting weapons there. So I'm interested to watch Will Rogers. And then obviously, I mean, Matt Corral's on the other side. Yep. He's banged up at this point. I've kind of stopped taking note of what he's doing because after they ran him 30 times against Tennessee or whatever, I mean, the season for him was probably going to be over. Mm-hmm. So I don't think with Corral not at 100%, I don't think having Mississippi State as a favorite is crazy talk, really.
Yeah, it seems like crazy talk to me because, again, you're right. Corral's beat up, but I believe Mingo's coming back for this game. Drummond came back into action last week. So we're finally starting to see this Ole Miss offense return almost fully to strength. Like I said, Corral's beat up, and obviously that's a huge key for their offense right there. But again, they still have 3 running backs that I think they can rely on here. Again, Snoop Connor, Henry Parrish, and Jarian Ely. 3 good options there. All 3 really can catch it out of the backfield as well, so I think Mississippi State's going to have a hard time defending that. Casey Kelly, the tight end for Ole Miss, really starting to come on now that he's back from injury. If this really is, or this is Matt Corral's last hurrah for the Egg Bowl, or for Ole Miss,
which he seemed to confirm, I guess, the other day with that.
Yeah, he basically said, like, this is going to be my last game. Thank you guys for supporting me. And why wouldn't he? He's probably going to be one of the confirmed first round QBs this year. But even still, I think if he's playing all out, he has all his weapons. I really don't see why Ole Miss can't win this game outside the fact that they are playing in Starkville. So that's just a hard place to play in the SEC. But even still, I'm going to take Ole Miss to win this game. I think he goes out in a hurrah.
How high scoring do you think this game is?
I think both teams hit above 30.
Okay. So not like the 77-point line.
No.
You're not getting that.
No. We're not. I don't think we hit 80. I don't think both teams hit above 40. But I wouldn't be surprised if the final score is like 42-35 or like 45-33 or something like that.
Yeah, that seems fair. I mean, Mississippi State doesn't. They're not an explosive offense per se. It's usually longer drives. So yeah, I'm going to take Mississippi State, but I get why. I think this is another close game. Mm-hmm. I just think Mississippi State's been a little stronger down the stretch here.
Got any whatchamacallit, excessive celebrations in the end zone for this one.
Somebody has to, like, I feel like that should just be a staple of this game for the foreseeable future. Like the first touchdown scored by whichever team does the Elijah Moore celebration, then the game just moves on.
Dude, I remember, like, one of my friends, we got into a fantasy league the year after that, and he drafted Elijah Moore because he was just like, I want a meme player. And then Elijah Moore ends up being like the wide receiver 1 by the end of the year, and he's sitting there like, okay, that worked out well for me.
It's good strategy.
Yep. You heard it here first, kids. Draft memeable players. They'll work out for you 100% of the time. All right, we'll move on.
Who's the 101 next year by that standard? I'm trying to think of a...
By that standard, I don't know. Georgia's got a player coming in, Smoke Bowie. It's a good name. I don't know.
I mean, LSU's got the coldest Crawford. So.
Oh, you're right. The coldest to ever do it. You're right. That's the 101 right next year, especially in IDP leagues.
Yeah.
We'll hit up another rivalry game here. First time this one has felt like both sides have a chance in friggin' forever, and that's Clemson, South Carolina. Line on this game is Clemson favored by 11.5 points. 7:30 game, and this is disrespectful in my opinion. It's on the SEC network. This is on the SEC network. But yeah, like I said, this feels like this is the first time that really both of these teams kind of have a shot in this game. I mean, obviously Clemson's been the big favorite for years now, but South Carolina with Shane Beamer has been riding a wave of momentum right now in their first year. They're bowl eligible, which I certainly didn't predict them to reach bowl eligibility this year. I expected them to struggle a whole lot more than they did. Then you got Clemson, who's doing, frankly, worse than pretty much everybody was expecting them to do. I don't think anybody was super surprised by Georgia beating them week 1, but then them just not having really any consistent offense throughout the rest of the year, I think it was a big shock for a lot of people. Again, DJ Uiagalelei was the 101 or 102 for C2C drafts, and in CFF in general, he was a first, second rounder for most people, and just a complete bust on that side of things. But last week was intriguing to me. Granted, Wake Forest was not a good defense by any stretch of the imagination, but the combination of Will Shipley and Kobe Pace has me thinking that Clemson might have figured something out with that run game that might make them a bit more consistent on offense. Because we really saw once Will Shipley went down for a couple of those games in the middle of the season, they were struggling. So Austin, what are your thoughts on this game, and what kind of things are you looking at here?
So just something that I don't think is talked about enough, like in the context of Clemson just being, extremely underwhelming this year. I think Georgia broke them week 1.
See, I joke about that. I as a Georgia fan, I joke about that, but part of me doesn't want to say that because it makes me sound arrogant. But at the same time, I do kind of wonder sometimes. Kind of wonder.
I think they did because that was a close game. Georgia's blowing everybody else out. The fact that was a close game, and DJ was kind of DJ's first crack at being the guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that plays a bigger role than people want to talk about. So I just want to throw that out there first. I know, especially with you being a Georgia fan, you would appreciate that. But obviously last week was if they don't do anything this week, you just have to burn the whole offense down.
Mm-hmm.
So luckily we're not going to hit that point there because in Wake Forest, they made Army look good.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of embarrassing there. They'll only go as far though. I think offensively as their running back duo can take them. Mostly Will Shipley, but Pace is certainly a decent player as well there. And I think that's because the wide receiver situation is going to work itself out this season. It's 8 of the same dude.
Yeah.
It's just if you lined them all up in a police lineup with their jerseys and helmet on, without the numbers, you wouldn't be able to pick out any of them.
You're 100% right. I've been saying that over and over again throughout this entire season that that's their big problem. And it's not even just that they're all the same size and everything. It's all the same skill set. They're all right. They're right about equal each other in terms of route running ability, all in terms of equal about speed. They don't have people that can really just change the tempo of the offense. You don't have a guy like Amari Rodgers who could take off the defense at any point during the game because he just burns a DB or two.
And it's okay if your wide receivers are all the same. If it's the modern wide receiver. I mean, Ohio State's wide receiver, 3 wide receivers, they're not necessarily, carbon, blueprint or, prints of each other, but you can play all 3 of those at any one of those 3 positions that they play. They're probably going to all perform, moderately to the same pace that they do where they usually are. The Clemson guys aren't, good players.
I mean, they're good. Like, a lot of these guys are like high 4-star, like Joseph Ngata, Frank Gladson, Bo Collins, EJ Williams. But like, for some reason, I don't know if it's just the wide receiver development there right now, which is crazy to say after they put guys like DeAndre Hopkins into the league, after they put guys like T. Higgins into the league, stuff like that. But like, it just feels crazy to say that like, just none of these guys are panning out right now, and something clearly feels wrong there right now. But even so, on the other side of this thing with South Carolina, do we think South Carolina has enough in the tank to go up against this Clemson defense, which is the one thing it feels like has lived up to expectation this year in terms of Clemson? That Clemson defense, outside of when they've been injured, has performed at almost an elite level at times. Do we think South Carolina has enough juice in order to win this game and put some points on Clemson's defense?
Well, they've got to be able to rush the ball. And I think that they will have a very tough time doing that. I mean, that is kind of Clemson's strength, giving up fewer than 3 yards per carry. So, no, I don't think that South Carolina will be able to move the ball very well. I don't think Clemson will either necessarily. But, yeah, Clemson or South Carolina just can't really move the ball through the air at all.
Mm-hmm. Every once in a while, Josh Vann gets a good breakout pass and stuff like that. But, again, I agree with you. South Carolina, currently, their bread and butter is that 3-headed backfield of Kevin Harris, Zaquandre White, and Marshawn Lloyd whenever he finally breaks out. Is he going to be the next John Emery, where everybody just kept waiting for him to take over the backfield over what is admittedly lesser recruited players, and he just never does?
Yes, but at least he has the injury to fall back on. John Emery has no excuse. So
true. That's another player I'm bitter about, because he was probably the first time I've ever drafted a freshman player in a redraft league was John Emery Jr. and I played him week 1 because I'm like, alrighty, he's gonna start. We're gonna do well this week. I was wrong. I was horribly wrong, and I never made that mistake ever again. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm gonna take Clemson to win this game because I think more than anything, this is just a game they can out-talent their competition. Even if South Carolina is rolling in with some good momentum right now, I think Clemson knows that they can put a stop to it, and they will.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So next one, we'll move on. When I picked the rivalry games we talked about, I tried to pick only games that were under 2 touchdowns on the spread, but it's hard to talk about rivalry weekend without talking about the Iron Bowl. Alabama going into Auburn, Jordan-Hare Stadium, a 19.5-point favorite, 3:30 game on CBS. I think this is a 3:30 game on CBS every rivalry weekend. But even still, this game loses a lot of the luster that I think a lot of people were ready to put on it from a couple weeks ago, because Auburn was riding hot, really, really hot. They lost to Georgia, but just after that point, they started to put together a good string of performances. And then they get shut down by Texas A&M. Then they let Mississippi State come back on them 28-3. And then they let South Carolina beat them last week. And then all of a sudden you're here. Alabama's coming into Jordan-Hare Stadium. What seems like a trap game for Alabama. It just doesn't look like that Auburn is capable of springing a trap on Bama right now. What do you think, Austin?
I mean, that's the beauty of these games. I can remember Auburn beating them a couple times in the past 10 years or so, where they really had no business if you were just looking at what happened prior. Bo Nix being out, I think, does eliminate really most of the chance that they're going to have that year. I mean, TJ Finley, I didn't get to watch that game this past weekend. I was actually at a wedding. I had the under on TJ Finley's pass yards, and he beat it on like one pass on the last drive, which very much upset me. But I mean, Finley might be one of the worst quarterbacks that Bama plays all year. I mean, he's just not very good. And I don't think the line isn't good enough to rely on the run game. Like, I know Tank Bigsby had a decent week this last week against South Carolina, but I struggle to see them moving the ball that effectively against an Alabama defense that isn't as strong as it usually is. Like, you would think that they wouldn't struggle too much, but just too many injuries, uncertainty of quarterback. even behind Jarquez Hunter has faded here in the second half of the season, and we kind of like that two-headed monster there for them. So I think you've got to pick Bama, but it's freaking rivalry games, man.
Yeah, freaking rivalry games. You're 100% right, but again, I think Bama's even too strong for Auburn at this point. Again, mostly because just Auburn's faded so much the past couple of weeks, and you're right that this Alabama defense can be taken advantage of, but it's going to be through the air, and I don't see TJ Finley either having the ability or really the receiving weapons in order to take advantage of Bama like that. Because like last week, KJ Jefferson had Treylon Burks to rely on consistently. He had Warren Thompson to rely on. But who does TJ have? He's got Demetrius Robertson, doing a lot better at Auburn than he did at Georgia, I'll say that much. But it's still, he's not a game-changing wide receiver. Kobe Hudson? Maybe this is the breakout game for Elijah Canyon. Maybe this is.
I should have put this in my contract before I came on the show today. We are not allowed to talk about Elijah Canyon. I got burned so freaking bad by that kid this year. I have him on like 80% of my rosters. Ugh.
Dude, that was the strangest thing week one, because everybody was convinced he was the next guy at Auburn, and then he doesn't even show up on the depth chart. That was such a shocker on week one, and it just never happened. He hasn't even entered the transfer portal, so I just don't know what's going on there. Did we just miss? I don't know.
He was, the bowl game and then the spring game. I felt, we had 2 games to work with instead of just one. It's that and Jaden Wally have just been the 2 that just, blew me away.
I think you said that Jaden Wally was going to be the wide receiver 1 this year.
I said I would push for it, yeah, and not so much.
Oh, no, it was Travell Harris you called for a wide receiver 1, I think, in your article.
I said that I thought it would come down to one of Tolbert, Cropper, or Travell Harris. And
Cropper's another weird one, because he was on fire the first couple of weeks, and then Hainer just didn't throw, or I guess maybe they double teamed him or something like that, but I had to cut him in most of my leagues because after a while he just wasn't producing anymore. Again,
that's totally off topic.
Totally off topic. We'll get back to these rivalry games. So we're going to stick in the SEC for this next one. We're going Texas A&M at LSU. A lot of people kind of clown the SEC for when they added A&M and they added Missouri. They kind of clown them around for kind of almost forcing rivalries between the two new teams and some of the established teams. But this A&M LSU game really has organically developed into its own rivalry between these two teams. I mean, you had the crazy 7 overtime game from a couple of years ago, where I don't know why the NCAA would ever want to prevent that from happening again. Overtime rules suck now. And then the year after, LSU just body bagged A&M on their way to an SEC championship, national championship, and I forget what happened last year off the top of my head, but I believe that was another great game right there. And so again, we got another good game here. A&M out of any kind of playoff discussion with their loss to who did they lose to? I am blanking here for a second. Sorry. But the other side of this, A&M out of conversation. They're really just fighting for bragging rights and respect at this point. But LSU last in the SEC West, the only team in the SEC West not bowl eligible, fighting for bowl eligibility here. Austin, do you see a world where LSU is able to pull an upset here and make it to where every SEC West team is bowl eligible? By the way, A&M only a 6.5 point favorite in this game.
They have to stop the run.
Mm-hmm.
I think is going to be the big key there. And they've been fairly consistent all year. I mean, they've been about 70th in the country for most of the year in terms of giving up yardage on the ground. I mean, I guess it's more of a 2-headed monster there at A&M with Achain and Spiller. Yes. They have to lean on them. I mean, Zach Calzada had his day in the sun against Bama, but has otherwise, not been the guy that's going to lead you to a win. I mean, I know this is like the simplest form of analysis ever, but I just think LSU can't stop the run, and likes to run.
Well,
there's a lot of uncertainty at LSU. I kind of, yeah.
Well, LSU's performed pretty well against the run in recent weeks. I mean, they faced Alabama, held them to like less than 40 yards rushing, if I remember correctly. Last week against Arkansas, they shut down their run game pretty consistently, kept that game low scoring. They lost that game at the end of the night, but even still, the fact that they were able to keep it low scoring like that, I think, speaks to their ability to slow down Arkansas's run game, which is a pretty good run game. Got Rocket Sanders over there, Dominic Johnson, Traylon Smith, kind of a three-headed monster there. So I wonder if they do kind of keep that up here. But let's be real, A&M's run game is much better than Alabama or Arkansas's. Even if they have good run games, A&M's probably one of the best run games in the country. Their offense can flow straight through that running game. Two great backs. A-Chain, just an absolute speedster. Once he gets in the open, he's gone. Spiller is that first second down back that's going to run straight into that line of scrimmage, and you got to have a prayer of stopping him. So I'm kind of with you. I'm going to lean towards A&M winning this game, and I think they'll win pretty comfortably, especially if LSU still continues to have good performances from their receivers, but nothing spectacular. Because there's not been like a Keishawn Mbute who's truly emerged and become that clear number one guy.
Well, I did hear that Chris Hilton is supposed to be healthy this week.
Ooh.
I'm not sure, I'm not suggesting that they're just going to throw Chris Hilton out there and he's going to change, make the difference in this game. Mm-hmm. But they are starting to get healthier there, sans Keishawn Mbute. So they've got some other guys there, and can Max Johnson do anything with them consistently? I don't know. But
I'm curious, what do you think? Because again, like talking about from a C2C perspective and everything like that, you got Garrett Nussmeier there. He took over in the Arkansas game there for a good bit. And do you think there's a legit quarterback battle going on between Max Johnson and him, or do you think that was like a one-game thing to try to get Max Johnson back in the right headspace?
Well, I know that they are saying now that they're going to redshirt Nussmeier.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think he can play another game.
Okay.
Or maybe he can play one more or something, but it doesn't make sense to play him, one more time.
Gotcha.
Bench him for the rest of the year. So I think that's why they were doing that. I don't think either of them is a long-term answer at quarterback. Mm-hmm. Neither Nussmeier nor Johnson. We'll see if they have some. As of right now, Walker Howard is supposed to be coming in there, 5-star kid. Yes. But there are also rumors that he might be flipping.
Ooh, I haven't heard those rumors.
I've heard some whispers, so that'll be interesting. I think he's probably better than any of the guys they have on that team right now.
At least in terms of ceiling, probably.
Yes.
Because
I'm not suggesting he goes in there and starts the true freshman game one, but I think talent-wise, he's certainly as good, if not better.
Definitely makes sense. So you probably expect maybe one or two of these guys to transfer throughout the offseason, you might think.
Maybe. I mean, Brennan's already in there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we'll know until like April or May.
Yeah, I agree. If there is a transfer here, it'll be because Walker Howard overtakes one of them, and they're now number 3 on the depth chart. That's when somebody's going to transfer. I would agree.
Yeah, that feels right.
In terms of who wins this game, who are you going with, A&M or LSU?
I'm going to stick with A&M. Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. So we've been sitting around the SEC for a little while, but we're going to go out west now for this one. Oops, I hit the wrong button. That's all good. All right, let me fix up this real quick. All right, there we go. Going out west. We're going to the Pac-12. It's the Apple Cup. Washington State, Wazoo versus Washington. This is a Friday game, 8 p.m. on Fox Sports 1. Washington State has not won this game since 2012. And I believe it was several years before that they won this game. This has been a very, very lopsided rivalry in recent years. But Washington State favored by 1.5 points in this game. And this game does have implications on the Pac-12 North race. Like I mentioned before with Oregon State and Oregon, if Wazoo wins this game and Oregon State beats Oregon, Oregon State becomes the number 1 team in the Pac-12 North, and Beavers go to the Pac-12 Championship. So what are some things you're looking for in this game, Austin? And I don't know, what are you looking for?
Well, I mean, Washington State has been sneaky decent. Mm-hmm. Not sneaky good, maybe, but sneaky decent over the past month. October 23rd, really, this run started. They lost to BYU by 2, but then very tough, beat Arizona State by a couple of scores the week after, lost to Oregon the week after that, but then blew out Arizona last week. I mean, they've been solid.
To be fair,
there.
A lot of teams blow out Arizona.
Yes, pretty much everybody. They got their one win, though, this year. So
they did.
I am happy for them honestly, I will say. I think this feels really, really weird to say. It feels like I'm back in 2019 as I'm saying this. I think this game comes down to Max Borghi and possibly Deion McIntosh. But because, I mean, you can't pass against this Washington team.
No.
It's just
no fly zone.
I don't even know why you would necessarily try it. I know that's kind of the staple of what we expect from Washington State traditionally here. But I think this game really comes down to, can Borghi continue to be effective running the ball? He had a big week last week, 140 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns.
That was the easiest over prop I've ever done in my entire life.
I had 13 fantasy points. It was the over that I played on him.
Yes, sir.
That hit
within the first
really,
quarter.
Really quick. Yes. I was very, very happy about that. So, I think he can do something similar again this week, maybe not average 9 yards a carry. And,
no.
But I think he can still be efficient and effective. And I think I think Washington State can and will win this game.
I mean, I'm with you 100%. And then I think it's just the offensive consistency that'll win Washington State this game. Washington State got nothing on offense right now. Their running back, Sean McGrew, has been out for several weeks now. They can't figure out the quarterback position, even though they have Sam Hewer just sitting there waiting in the wings. I think they're planning on redshirting him so that so he can't really play the rest of this year. So they're between Dylan Morris and there's another quarterback. Who's the other quarterback?
O'Brien is the other one, right? Transferring from Colorado State.
Yes. So I think they're trying to decide between those two right now because they can't get anything going. Every receiver, it feels like, has been injured at one point in this season. I think they lost several for the season early on in the season. So they can't get any kind of passing game going. Cade Otton's kind of been a disappointment for me in terms of production this year. Now, he still has some talent. I'm sure the NFL is going to love him once he declares. But even so, I just can't see Washington putting up nearly as many points as Washington State. So I'm going to take the Cougars, Yahoo Cougar football, to win.
Yeah, please just play Heward. There's nothing. He's not going to do any worse.
It's one of these things where, like, again, I feel bad for teams. Like, I never want to be a head coach or anything like that, obviously. But it's like one of these things where, like, if you're a team at the end of the year and you're already starting to kind of look towards next year and you have a starting quarterback who's not going to the NFL, like, let's be real. Dylan Morris is not ready to declare to go to the NFL. He is not going to be a guy that probably ever will declare for the NFL. Why not just go ahead and put your future guy in? It's kind of like NFL teams near the end of the year when they know they're not going to re-sign their quarterback. Why not just go ahead and throw your rookie out there, get him some reps?
I agree. I mean, maybe the offense is too much of a mess. They don't want to get him killed. I don't know.
Fair enough, but it's not really their O-line that's really been a problem for them this year as far as I could tell. Again, I haven't watched a ton of Husky football, so I'll admit that completely. So if you're a Husky fan out there and you think I'm wrong, let me know. So we'll hit up one last rivalry game here, then we'll hit some of these over-under games for you guys. We got Wisconsin on the road at Minnesota. Wisconsin is a 6.5-point favorite game. This will be the 4 p.m. game on Fox. I believe it's on Fox. I have to double-check that. But, again, very, very interesting game here. Plenty of good Minnesota teams have come into this game ready to win the Big 12 or Big 12 West. And Wisconsin's always been right there to foil them. And Wisconsin, now their turn, coming in, ready to clinch that Big 10 West here. I don't know all the scenarios in which they might not win the Big 10 West. I forget what the actual standings are right now. But regardless, that division has not been decided yet as far as I know. And these are two tough physical teams that are going to be going right at each other. And really the guy that is the big guy for me here is Braylon Allen, running back for Wisconsin. If you have not been watching Wisconsin football, we're looking at possibly the next Jonathan Taylor here. Dude is 17 years old and has taken this running back room at Wisconsin by storm. Jalen Berger transferred out earlier this season. Other things besides the depth chart that led to that. Ches Malusi gets injured. Braylon Allen gets his shot. He's absolutely taken over this backfield. They were splitting carries earlier in the season. He is now the bell cow back. Yet to see what happens when Malusi comes back. But even so, I think there's a huge story here at the end of the season that Wisconsin finally seems to have found their next true bell cow back for them to use. And if you've played CFF for any period of time, you know that once Wisconsin has their bell cow back, that is a fantasy gold mine going forward. And I have to imagine, Austin, for guys like you, C2C, got a freshman guy coming in here and taking over the Wisconsin running back room. That has to be exciting for you.
He is one of the least obtainable players in Campus to Canada. I'm sure he's the same way in, a CFF dynasty type league.
Mm-hmm.
He just, the mystique of being a 17-year-old kid starting at a program that, produces these top end running backs like it's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It has just, yes, I'm not even attempting it this offseason. Are you prepared for this game to be like 5-3?
I'm not, because I am playing Braylon Allen this week, because Braylon Allen to me has almost become matchup proof. I benched him last week in one of my leagues because I was slightly afraid of him going up against Nebraska's somewhat decent running defense. I was wrong. He scored 40 points.
You can't bench, but it's like they're both top 20 rush offenses, and they're both, Wisconsin's number 1 rush defense, and Minnesota's 12th overall, I believe, in the country. So, this game is going to, I'm taking the under.
Oh, yeah.
I do think I do think that presents more problems for Minnesota, because I think Tanner Morgan is just a disaster. Like, you're just kind of hoping that grenade doesn't go off in your hand as he's out there, where I don't necessarily feel that about Mertz.
Remember when people were saying that he could be a first-round quarterback?
Dude, I got in so many fights on Twitter that offseason. So many people were like, why do you have him as a late day 3 guy? I was like,
he's not good.
Have you watched him? It's Johnson and Bateman doing everything here. This guy. So he's fallen off hard in the past couple years.
What do you think about Graham Mertz? Again, I'll ask you about him in terms of C2C, because obviously people got excited with him with his first start. Absolutely lit up Illinois' defense in his first start. Just tough the rest of the way. Really, until lately, he seems to, with the help of Braylon Allen being kind of a foil to where people don't have to focus on the passing game nearly as much, he seems to be doing a little bit better now that the attention is being taken away from him. What do you think about Graham Mertz? Do you think there's a chance for him to rebound in the upcoming years, or no?
My big problem with Graham Mertz is that, he's got 2 qualities that I think kind of define him as a player. He plays very safe, and he still somehow makes dumb decisions within that context. And those 2 things together do not make a very good quarterback.
Yes, I would say so.
At least if you're, forcing the ball downfield, tight windows, consistently, just kind of pushing a defense. I think it's okay to make some bad decisions, but you can't do it when you're also generally playing very, very safely. So I think he's a cautionary tale for any quarterback that has any sort of recruiting pedigree to go to Wisconsin. That's just what, if we take any lesson away from Graham Mertz, that is the lesson. Children, if you're watching this show, if you're listening to this show, you want to play quarterback someday, and your name's not Russ Wilson, who's already developed and graduated and all that, don't go to Wisconsin.
Don't worry about Wisconsin. We'll flip on to the other side of things with Minnesota. I think we're both kind of leaning that Wisconsin wins this game because, again, we just trust their offense a little bit more, even if just with Braylon Allen. The Braylon Allen effect, I think, is enough to think that Wisconsin wins this game. Am I off base there?
No, I agree. And if I have Kai Thomas, I'm not starting him this week.
Oh, I'm not.
He had a nice week last week.
I'll ask you, though, regarding that Minnesota running back room. So Mohamed Ibrahim obviously goes down. He was a top 3 or 4 guy in CFF this year, and goes down first week of the game. You got Trayshawn Potts, becomes that next bell cow back for them, and he goes down. He's out. He's got an illness. So now you got Kai Thomas, who's didn't quite take over immediately, but he's kind of built himself into that semi-bell cow role. Marcus Irving is there as well. He's getting plenty of carries as well. I'll ask you from a perspective going forward, who do you think is the most valuable back out of probably, assuming Ibrahim doesn't come back, because I think he was a senior this year. So assuming he doesn't come back, who's more valuable, Trayshawn Potts or Kai Thomas?
So I am not a Minnesota fan. I'm not a Minnesota insider, and I am not a doctor. I have heard some not great rumors about Trayshawn Potts long term.
Okay.
I'm hearing this is a possible Journey Brown type situation again. Yes. So if I have any Trayshawn Potts and people don't know about that, I'm probably trying to shop him around. And I'm not saying that's, a definitive thing. That is just, I've heard a couple people tell me that.
Okay.
So that I'm very hesitant to acquire Trayshawn Potts. So I think it's got to be Kai Thomas.
Fair enough. I was going to ask, like, if Trayshawn Potts was coming back, like, who would be more valuable, the guy that they went to immediately after Abraham, or the guy who finishes out the season as the RB1? I guess we'll just do that in more of like a general term. Like, if you have two running backs, one was the next guy up, got injured as well, and then you have a third guy come in. He is the bell cow back for offense, even the number 3 guy. Which is more valuable? That guy who's the number 3, but it was ended the season as a bell cow, or the number 2 guy who is the next man up?
It's a good question because I think it applies to both of these offenses. Mm-hmm. Actually, with Malusi going, I mean, you had Berger and Malusi get out of the way for Allen there. Berger's gone. If I found out tomorrow that Trayshawn Potts was going to be healthy, he was going to be fine, he's going to come back next season, everything's going to be great. Mm-hmm. I think I would lean Potts still because it's not like Thomas has outproduced him. I mean, I think actually he's probably performed slightly worse than Potts has there.
Okay, fair enough.
So I think I would prefer Potts in that scenario.
Yeah, I like I said, I think it was a good question to ask because, again, we're getting into that portion of the season where people are starting to ask, like, who's the next guy up? It's not quite as cut and dry as we thought of in the past couple of years. Again, transfer portal is going to throw a wrench in so many of these depth charts. Guys are going to be leaving that you didn't expect to leave. You'll be wondering, like, why is he leaving? He was the next guy up. All that good jazz. But it's the kind of stuff you got to start thinking about.
What do you think that does for Irving? Because they really usually ride one guy.
So Irving, it always seems like, because like every time that one of these guys has gone down from Minnesota, immediately people are jumping in and saying Irving's the guy next. Irving's the guy next. But Minnesota just has a role for him. He is that third down change of pace back. He's going to be that receiving back. As long as he's comfortable in that role, I don't see him leaving Minnesota, and I don't really see him ever taking over as that number 1 back from Minnesota because I think Minnesota knows he's not the kind of guy that you can ride on for 35 carries in a game. So I think his role is set in stone in Minnesota's offense as far as I can tell going forward.
So buy some Marquise Irving.
Yeah, exactly. He is we're going to get out of him every week. So those are all of our rivalry games we're going to talk about. Again, just some general college football chat, talk about some guys we're expecting performances this week. But we can now move on to some of our over-under games. But before we go, I do want to shout out some other rivalry games. Not going to go in depth on this. I just want to shout them out real quick. Kentucky-Louisville, that's a 3-point game. North Carolina, NC State, North Carolina. Disappointing year. Maybe they can bounce back with a win over their rivals. And then, of course, the beautiful, beautiful Baylor Texas game, or Texas Tech game, the butt game. BU versus TT. Gotta love it.
Do they always put them on screen that way too, or do they switch it up?
I think they might have switched it in recent years because everybody kept calling them out for it. But honestly, I don't know why they wouldn't keep it. It's harmless. It's harmless.
Yeah.
It's not. We're talking about Germany versus Nigeria over here, all right?
That flashed in my head as soon as you said that.
But even still, I'll throw one more thing out here. Big 12. Put your rivalry games on rivalry weekend. I'm so sick of death to, like, again, it worked out this year because you got Oklahoma State on rivalry weekend, but nothing was more disappointing to me than, like, getting, like, I don't know, Kansas State versus Baylor on rivalry weekend. I'm like, just put Kansas State here. Just put Texas Tech here. Put Baylor TCU here. Put Oklahoma State on rivalry weekend full time. There's no reason not to do it.
Well, Florida doesn't play Georgia doesn't play their biggest rival on rivalry week.
Okay, I'm talking about in-state rivalries.
Okay.
At least make it the same rival every single week or every single year. That's all I'm asking.
Yes, some continuity at least would be nice.
Continuity and not just some random matchup. Because let's be honest, nobody really cares about the Kansas versus Texas Tech game, all right?
I don't know if anyone really cares about Kansas State either, but at least they're in state together.
Exactly. Fair enough. All right, let's hit up some of these high over-under games. Again, we're really going to break down more players in this one, like guys we're looking for to perform well in these games. So starting off, we got Wake Forest at Boston College, 12 p.m. game on ESPN2, over-under right at our margin of 65 points. Austin, who's a couple guys you're looking for in this game?
So I just want to add, like, how much do you trust Zay Flowers in this matchup? Who has been really underwhelming. I thought he would take off with Jerkovic coming back here, and he really the volume hasn't been super high. I mean, he's been efficient.
So Zay Flowers was one of my favorite guys coming in because he and Jerkovich really did have a connection. It looked like coming into the season. I'm trying to look him up real quick to see like what his performance. Because I thought he had a pretty decent.
He had 392 and 1, I believe, because I played his line of 4 catches and was not thrilled with that. And I think the week before that he only had 2 catches, but both of them went for touchdowns. If I remember correctly.
Okay. So he's performed decently fantasy wise. It's just he's not getting a ton of volume.
Yeah.
Again, he's gotten a long pass of 40 yards in the last 4 games that he has played. So he's going to, it looks like, hit a big play pretty much every single game. The only game that's been a really true disappointment had to have been that stretch where he played Clemson, NC State, and Louisville. Didn't hit over 7 points fantasy-wise in any of those games. Not in PPR, I'm talking about here. With PPR, he goes a little bit higher than that. But Wake Forest's defense is awful. We've seen them perform. I have no doubt in my mind that Zay Flowers is going to get at least a touchdown in this game, especially if this game does become a shootout. Phil Jerkovich is going to be looking for him down the field. I trust Zay Flowers pretty well in this game, and I trust Phil Jerkovich in this game as well. He didn't perform extremely well against FSU last week, but I think, again, poor defense from Wake Forest will be enough for there. Who are some of the guys you're looking at for Wake Forest?
Everybody that wears a Wake Forest uniform, I'm probably pretty excited about. I mean, I think it's the triangle: Hartman, A.T. Perry, and Ja'Cory Roberson. I think are the 3 guys. I mean, Moran slides in there sometimes, but I think you just start all 3 of those guys every single week, no matter what.
I would say Moran's if you're in a deep league, he's the deep league kind of play. I forget, is Christian Beal Smith expected to come back this week? Or is it still expected to be Justice Ellison?
I thought he was close this past week, but I have not heard an update on that. I'll be honest. The Wake Forest running back situation is not one that necessarily I monitor throughout the week too much. But I did hear before the game last week that he was close.
Although, if somebody ever transfers from Wake Forest, we now know to follow them very closely. Looking at you, Mr. Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, put him on the radar.
So yeah, there's a couple of guys in that game. I guess I'll ask you, Austin, do you want over or under on this game? Is that set at 65? Is that a number that you trust?
The number can never be too high for Wake Forest.
Okay, fair enough.
I think that's a line that I wouldn't play. If I'm actually putting money on it, I would probably take the under. But
I'm not an expert on gambling whatsoever. That's why I don't really I don't have like separate sections for that. I just kind of ask it every once in a while. But I have heard that 64 is a huge number when it comes to over unders in terms of whether to play. If it's anywhere close to 64, usually people kind of stay away from that. Is that something that you kind of hear about?
I actually did not know that. I do not make my own betting advice. I have a few people that I trust, and we've got a couple guys at Campus Canton, and then a few other guys as well. Mr. CFB Winning Edge, one of my guys there. So I cannot answer that, unfortunately.
Fair enough. So we'll move on to a second game. We actually only have 4 of these games. Crazy enough, in a rivalry weekend, we only got 4 games that hit that over-under of 65 here. So we'll talk about those. We got a Maction game. We got Miami of Ohio at Kent State. Maction, as everybody knows, is a CFF player's best friend, especially once they start playing each other. There are no limitations to the amount of points that any team can score in a Maction game. You can go for 30, 40 points in every single game, or you can be Akron for some reason and score 0 points against one of the worst defenses in the league last week. I'm not sure what happened there, Akron. I know you're bad, but good God. Anyway, I'll start with some Kent State players that obviously I'll be looking for in this game. And like Dustin Crum, as always, dude is electric. Got the legs, got the receivers, got the passing game. He's a must start if you're playing him this weekend. In terms of his receivers, Dante Cephas really became that number 1 wide receiver for him. Ain't no reason not to trust him in this game. Nakeem Johnson is a guy that's kind of come along as the season's kind of come on. He's somebody you might want to look at in a deeper sense. But my favorite guy on this Kent State offense is their running back, Marquez Cooper. Took over as a freshman for Kent State. And whenever you have an offense that scores this many points, you're going to want to have the running back on it because he's going to get those goal line carries. Now, he might get a few snubbed from Dustin Crum and such, but even so, they get down in there close. Marcus Cooper's become that guy. He's going to get you a touchdown or 2 in every game that you play him in.
Yeah, I mean, I have been rolling with Crumb in a couple of leagues the past few weeks and been very happy with that. I mean, the guy that I am in one championship this week. I was upset in two last week, and I'm very, very sad about it. Jack Sorensen.
Yes, sir.
I'm throwing him out there, and I literally just assume that I'm going to wake up on Thursday morning or whatever, and he's going to have 35 points.
Kent State has I think the 129th ranked passing defense in the country. So Sorensen and Matt Hippenhammer, I think we can both expect to have good days here.
I was going to say Hippenhammer. I don't know if I would play him in anything that I start 10 or fewer players in. I don't know. What do you? But I think more than that, maybe I'm thinking I fire him up.
I think this is a matchup that if you're struggling with matchups with some of your other more safe bet guys that you've been relying on, I think Hippenhammer is somebody you can find on a ton of leagues right now. Plug him in. This Kent State offense is giving up tons of big plays every single week, so I think he's good for at least one or two big plays in that sense. Again, obviously Sorensen's the guy if you can get him, but Hippenhammer I think will be a pretty good play for you this upcoming week.
Yeah.
So what do you think that when we're talking about Sorensen, we're talking about Hippenhammer here, but I believe Brett Gabbert is the quarterback for Miami of Ohio. Is he somebody that you might consider if your quarterbacks are in bad matchups this week?
It had to be really bad.
Okay.
To be honest, I'd have to have, an Adrian Martinez who's out and one or two other guys with some not favorable matchups.
No, fair enough.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'd have to be a little bit desperate.
I'm just double checking one thing here before we move on here. Yeah, I was like, I had a thought in my head. I'm like, is there a running back here that I thought about? And I'm like, right, Miami, Ohio is the absolute hellscape for running backs right now. There is nobody they have right now that is taking over as that main running back.
I will say actually, just to Gabbert's credit, I mean, last week he really struggled against Bowling Green, but the two games before that I believe almost 500 yards in one of them, about 350 in the other, and I think he had 5 touchdowns and 4 touchdowns. So I mean, you could do a lot worse if you're in a desperate situation. I think that's what I'll classify him as this week.
He is a desperate situation play. Fair enough. Then the one league I need a desperate quarterback in is a Power 5 league, so I can't grab him there.
That's unfortunate because those MAC guys, I mean,
I know they're so good
fun
to just pick up and plug them in and play if you're having a rough week. Anyway, we got a third game here going through the ACC. Miami at Duke, 12:30 game on ESPN3 or ESPN Plus. If you have that instead, you can catch it there. Over/under on this game, 68 points. Austin, I'll let you pick a team first this time and tell me some of the players you're looking at for it.
Yeah, 68 feels a little high to me. I'll take the easy team. I'll take Duke because the only person I'm interested in on that team is Mateo Durant.
Fair enough.
We talked actually a lot on the C2C pod last week about sitting him. Mm-hmm. He has really struggled the past 2 games, but I think that he can get it going this week against Miami, who's not a great rush defense. Have they officially switched quarterbacks? Is Riley Leonard the guy now, or did they just kind of switch to him late last week because of the circumstances?
I think it's more of a circumstantial thing. I have not seen anything that's been definitive about that.
Regardless, I don't think I'm interested in either of them. And then maybe Bobo, depending on.
Bobo, I think, is a decent play because of just the game script. Like they're probably gonna be behind in this game. They're probably gonna want to pass the ball. They're really off of that ride or die on Durant thing that they had going on early on in the season. So I think he might be an interesting one. But even so, Miami, I think, is where the value's at in this game. Tyler Van Dyke, I know you guys are starting to get real excited about him over there on C2C. I saw somebody had him labeled as the number 3 quarterback for 2023 draft, I think it was.
Felix is a big fan, and I know we are actually going to be talking about him. We record the C2C pod right after we're done here. So,
but yeah, he came in after Derek King got injured for the rest of the year and instantly upgraded this passing game for Miami, which is a shame because I like Derek King a lot, but just too many injuries have really hobbled him. And Tyler Van Dyke came in, fresh pair of legs, and has really kind of unlocked this passing game for them pretty well. I mean, Charleston Rambo, one of my favorite guys coming into the season, a lot of people are kind of writing him off, saying, he's going to make it at Oklahoma, he's not going to make it at Miami. Too many things were telling me that he was going to perform well because he was performing well with all of the quarterbacks behind the scenes, all of them. And, well, Tyler Van Dyke really came in, has unlocked his potential. He's had, I think I wrote about him 2 weeks ago in John Lobb's waiver wire column. And I think during that time, it was like 5 out of the last 6 games, he had over 100 yards in those games. So he's become an absolute fantasy asset this year. And then Jalen Knighton. Now that all it took was every running back in their room to get freaking injured, but Jalen Knighton came back from suspension, and they just hand the ball off to him. They throw the ball to him through the air, and he's getting plenty of touches every single game, so he's absolutely worth a play here.
Yeah, they've moved into like must-start territory for me with how weak those ACC defenses are. Knighton and Van Dyke are quite the duo.
And Duke has 117th rushing defense. I think they're 120 plus against the pass. Duke's defense is awful. Expect these Miami players to feast.
Malik Cunningham, put up an RB1/QB1 performance last week.
Exactly.
So, let's get more of it this week.
Like John Lobb's, we've been talking about like the awards that he gives out at the end of the year, and like he went up to us. He's like, "Hey, after Malik Cunningham's performance, like, is he gonna win the QB award?" And all of us were like, "No," but also like he made his case.
He won me a matchup last week by himself, so I will love him forever.
Dude, I played against him in one matchup, and I lost that matchup by 0.28 points.
Oof. You almost overcame it. It was very rough. Good thing it wasn't a playoff game. This is the one league where it's only 4 of us in the league. It's a home league. So it's just the top 2 teams play for the championship at the end of the year. And yeah, he beat me by 0.28 points. It was not a fun time. But we got one more over-under game here to talk about with you guys. And we got the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers at the Marshall Thundering Herd. This is on CBS Sports Network. I did not write down a time. That's bad on me. Bad Jared. But anyway, the over-under on this game, 70-5. But honestly, is there anything else to expect from a game that has the Western Kentucky offense in it? Austin, what do you think? Yeah, I am actually really interested to see if Marshall, I don't think, what's his name? The quarterback for Marshall, whose name is just totally gone now. Grant Wells.
Yes.
I don't know. He is so inconsistent. If he has himself if he's there mentally that day, I see a big day for him because Western Kentucky just can't slow down the pass.
No, not at all.
But it's Rasheen Ali there is the guy we care about, and I would expect him to have hopefully another 40-point performance like he's been putting up pretty much week in, week out all season long. Most pleasant surprise of the college football season for me as far as fantasy goes.
He's a freshman too, right?
I think he might technically be a second-year guy, but yes, I believe he is listed as a freshman.
Is he somebody that in C2C leagues you guys are kind of looking at for a possible early, like one of these early breakouts that you think indicates that he'll be a high draft pick?
One of my co-hosts on Debbie Debate, Matt Bruning, has been kind of trending that way. As with all these G5 guys, especially not ones who are at Boise State or just insert typically Cincy, typically a bigger team. I probably need to see another year of it, just in the nature of being at Marshall. But he's certainly off to a great start.
Fair enough. And then Corey Gamage is their wide receiver 1. He's got 62 receptions, 784 yards in the year, but the big thing is that he only has 2 touchdowns through the air. Rasheen Ali's really been vulturing almost all of those. Is he somebody you might want to consider here, especially if this game becomes a shootout?
Probably. Someone has to catch passes, and Western Kentucky, it wouldn't shock me if Wells throws for 300, 350 plus yards this week. So somebody's got to be on the end of it. I certainly don't think he would be a terrible play this week either.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so those are our 4 over-under games for this week. Again, only got 4 of them, which is kind of crazy considering it's rivalry weekend. I imagine there's going to be more games than that go over 65. But we'll kind of wrap up here. Also, is there anything else you really kind of wanted to talk about before we head out of here?
No, just thanks so much for having me on. Good luck to everybody this week in their championship games. I know these are the weeks that I don't want a disappointing Thanksgiving for you. So
I mean, again, Austin, you're thanking me for coming on here, but thank you for coming on. I just kind of last minute I asked you to come on here. You were very flexible. I've had Colin, your co-host, on here before. He did one of the mock drafts with us during the summer. That was an awesome time. I wanted to make sure I got you on here at one point because you invited me and Xavier onto your guys' show at one point, so we wanted to return the favor. You guys have been awesome for us. You've been very supportive of us. And again, I told John Lobb last night, it really helped that when we kind of started posting content, there was some of you guys in the space that immediately started retweeting our stuff, started just letting people know, like, hey, like these guys' stuff is good. And you and Colin were among the first that really kind of reached out a hand and allowed us to come onto your shows and kind of talk shop with you guys. So again, I want to thank you. And Colin, if you're listening, this goes for you as well. You guys have been awesome for us. We're very excited to see what you guys do in the future. Just remind the folks at home real quick, Austin, like, where can they find you? Where can they find the Campus Canton stuff and all the stuff you guys are working on right now?
Sure. So you can find me individually on Twitter. I am at Debbie Dietz. And then just everything I do is at campuscanton.com. And we have all sorts of stuff over there. I write articles. I do a couple podcasts a week. We're starting to bulk up our YouTube videos with the incoming freshman stuff. So everything I do, those over there. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got. I will say Colin had a much tougher job when he came on this show. But a CFF mock draft, I gave him a big pat on the back, major kudos for coming on and doing that, because that's not our, necessarily our wheelhouse. So
I thought it was fun. Again, I like bringing guys on who like have different perspectives. I think the next one, or no, I didn't record that one, but we did have Matt. You mentioned Matt Bruning earlier. He came on for one, or he he signed up for one of our mock drafts, so he did one as well. So I gotta get you on one next year.
I'm looking forward to it. I will certainly hop in at least one.
I'm looking forward. Again, I now that I have a bit more of a plan, I expect to do a lot more of those next year. So that should be pretty fun. But even still, we're heading into the end of the season, y'all. It's championship week. A lot of you guys have worked really hard to get to this point. Good luck to each and every one of you guys. And if you're listening, you guys know the spiel I'm about to go into. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button. You guys know exactly what to do. Leave a comment down below. It could be from anything, whether you are asking me for advice on your championship. I have so many of you guys. People, like some of you guys have not asked me a single question all year long. All of a sudden, my phone was blowing up with requests for lineup advice this week. And guys, ask those people. I have answered every single one of them. I try to give you as thorough of an answer as I can. And I encourage you to ask so many different guys in the space for advice. It's always good to get as many opinions as you can. But even still, in addition to that, make sure that if you're listening on podcasts, you are following us there, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Leave those 5-star reviews. Austin, you are one of the 5-star reviews that we have, and it was a very, very nice 5-star review. And if you want me to read your 5-star review, well, you have to leave one. And then, as always, on Twitter, best way to reach me, I am at CFF_Jared. You can always reach my co-host at CFF_Xavier Hood. He should be pretty responsive to you there as well. Thank you guys so much for listening. It is a crazy week, and I can't wait to see some of the stuff that we are going to be able to do with you guys once bowl season, once the off season kind of gets here. It's going to be some crazy stuff. Again, you guys have worked hard. Enjoy your championship weekends. Have a wonderful day.